Hello and welcome everybody to today's video where we have a good news coming. India has won gold in both the open and the women's section in the Chess Olympiad 2024 in Budapest. So congratulations to all the players and coaches of India for this great success. But for this video, we have the game of Divya Deshmukh, who has scored 9.5 points out of 11, losing not a single game. She has been a great asset for the Indian team, and henceforth we are going to look her final game in the Olympiad against Beduleva from Azerbaijan. Another big news is that Divya crossed 2500 live rating, and she just needs now 3 GM norms to become a GM, and that would be crazy. And also she's winning the individual gold in the Chess Olympiad. That is something very phenomenal. So yes, with that, let's go and see today's game. With the white pieces, Divya starts with the move 1c4, that is the English opening. Black plays knight f6, knight c3, e5, and the move g3, with the idea to fianchet to the light square bishop on the g2 square. g3 is not a very common move because most of the players here play the move knight f3, e3, or something like a3, so that the bishop cannot sit to b4 in the further play. But Divya played the move g3 with a clear idea to go this side of the board. Now here we see knight to c6, bishop g2, and hence comes bishop to b4. Now the bishop to b4 putting some pressure on the knight, but white had all prepared and she played the move e4. This is also something very rare to play in this position, because if you also check the engine, it does not come in the top 3 moves. So d4, e4, what does it do? If you say it controls the central square, of course, but it also weakens these squares on the d5. But the idea being is to just control the center and somewhere in the game push the pawn to f4 and ruin black structure and attack the king side. If you have followed Divya's game, she is a very aggressive player, and hence I guess she chose this variation just for that reason. Moving ahead, we see d6, knight ge2, and bishop to g4. Knight ge2 was here to protect this knight so that when the bishop takes, our pawns does not get double up. But now black plays the move bishop to g4, pinning the knight to the queen. White simply plays the move h3 so that the bishop has to go behind, or what black played here, that is bishop takes knight. Here of course if queen takes or something like that, bishop can simply take this and give double pawns, and hence white took with the knight so that somewhere f4 the knight can also pounce inside if the knight takes it. Now we play the move a5. Black plays the move a5 and we go castle. Bishop goes to c5, seeing this diagonal entirely, and then d3 incoming, so that the dark square bishop is now free. The idea is also to trade the dark square bishop with opponent's dark square bishop. Moving on, we see knight going to d7. Knight d7 has been played because black might know that white is going to come. White's idea is to play bishop e3. So whenever bishop e3 comes, black does not have to waste any move by putting the bishop behind. Instead, the knight is just handling the square so that when the bishop takes the bishop, the knight is there to come in. Bishop e3, and then here surprisingly, black plays the move bishop to d4. This is a very surprising move because you're giving up another bishop. The knight can take it. For the first time, you'll see black giving up 2 of the bishops for the knights. And you know bishop pairs are very good. But here Divya chose to play the move bishop takes bishop, which is also a very good move, because now let's say if knight takes, then knight takes, pawn takes, and black will have doubled pawns. Though you will see our pawn is a little backward, but black having doubled pawns and white having an entire open bishop here, it is very good for white. So black took with the knight, knight takes and pawn takes. And now we play the move calm move, that is b3. So now you can see here these pawn chains, where are they looking at? The king. The king is somewhere going to be attacked in the later run. Castles, and now we see the move a3. The point of a3 is somewhere in the play going to play b4. But white firstly started with the move b3 so that black does not start with a4. Because if black starts with a4, a3, black can overexpand and get a lot of space, because if the queen somewhere gets exchanged and it goes to the endgame, then that space would help black a lot. b3, castles a3, and now c6 played by black. Why did black play c6? Because black saw that this bishop is very powerful in this diagonal. And somewhere, if white is allowed to go something like f4 and push this and unleash this bishop, then it would not be very good for black. And hence, black played the move c6. c6 also allows this diagonal for the queen, so that the queen can enter from b6 and attack this weak pawn in the later run. Moving on, king to h2. Now, if you are an avid chess player, you know why does a player play a king move in the middle of the game. This is because white or the black pieces, if plays something like king h2 or king h8, then the player wants to play something like f4, f5, so that this diagonal does not go weak if the king is on g1. That's why king to h2 has been played. Queen b6, we can see some pressure here, something going to cook up here, and now rook to b1. So white, first idea, rook b1 is played because white wants to push this, of course. Then we see queen coming to c5, attacking the a3 square. But now we simply go queen to c1 with the idea of defending this, but also this entire c1 to h6 diagonal is open for the queen. So the queen has mobility both sides of the board. So if the queen wants to switch its play and go to the queen side, let's say f4, f5, something like this happens, then queen comes to here, the rook lifts up, that can be very, very good for white. Rook comes here to h7. Of course, the idea is firstly, this bishop somewhere it attacks this, so the rook defends it, but also to double up somewhere, because black knows that here this is going to get opened up. So if the rooks on the a file are doubled, then black can enter into white's position. Queen b2 comes in. Now the first idea is to push this, also to put pressure here, because when we push this, the queen will be attacked and queen won't have many squares. And if the queen won't have many squares, the queen is defending this pawn. So why not put pressure on both these squares? That's why queen comes to b2. Rook a8. This was something of a comedy because the rook came here and went behind, but that was a good move from the engine side as well. f4, and now you can see white is going for f5 or maybe e5, because this bishop has to open at some point. Queen goes to b6, and now queen goes to f2. You can see the mobility of the queen from c1 to b2 to f2. It is very, very nice to see. Queen c5 coming again. So black is playing something interesting. First rook b7, rook a7, and rook a8. Queen c5, queen b6, and then go back queen c5. So something is cooking. You can see black is very nervous, repeating the moves as such. But now Divya strikes with the move b4. So she could have done this earlier as well, but she thought this is the right moment. When the queen is right here on f2, we strike in with the move b4. Pawn takes, and queen goes again to b6, because that square is only good for the queen, because the queen has also a task to defend this pawn. Now the game is going to turn real quick. White plays the move pawn to b5, and here black blunders hard time. Black plays the move c5, because why is this not a good move? And if you go behind, the best move in this position is, interestingly, queen c5 again. Queen c5 is again the best move, and that would have been very crazy. But black plays the move c5, and that's an inaccuracy, for the simple reason that this push is very strong, because the bishop will eye the pawn. Rook a1 first played by white so as to exchange the rooks. Another inaccuracy. Rooks are exchanged, and now boom, we see the move e5. And seeing the position itself, you'll see white has life, but black's pieces, what is this knight even doing here? The bishop is like a monster on g2. And now e5 is played, also threatening to take this pawn. Also somewhere e6 if the queen defends it somehow. And also the bishop is attacking the b7 square. Here another inaccuracy. So move after move, black is playing inaccurate moves, because here something like just playing rook b8 would have been better. Of course white is already like +2, but yes, rook b8 and then giving up this pawn. Of course white is doing better as well in that position. But queen c3 allowed just to play this move. This move is a very nice move. The idea being is you can of course directly take the pawn with the bishop, but then all these pawns are going to start hanging. So the idea of queen playing to f3 was firstly of course to take this pawn with the queen and then put counter attack here and move the passed pawn ahead and make a queen. But here black chose not to defend this again and just take this pawn, and hence white striked in, queen takes pawn, knight is attacked. These all pawns are weak and we have a passer right here. Now queen chose to give up the knight, and here of course you are a piece up and Divya is an IM, and IM cannot ruin the structure now. Black thought that giving up this knight might be some counterplay, because if knight moves then white has everything. So these central pawns, black has just the hope for it, move the queen somehow and run these pawns here down the board and put some pressure on white's camp. But Divya simply, here she played an inaccurate move. She played queen to f5 because this allowed something like taking this pawn, and now after takes, white is of course winning, but these two connected passes and just giving away these two very good pawns. Here instead of playing something like queen f5, just play b6. Just push this pawn and win the game. But she gave up both the pawns because she thought she's already a piece up, or why to complicate such things. And then a rook comes in, queen is attacked. This pawn is very weak. Queen moves side, queen comes to c6, putting pressure here, and the idea is simply rook to b5, attacking the queen and winning the pawn. Pawn pushes, and now queen, it does not go for here because this pawn is something like dangerous if it queens. Therefore queen comes to d6. Also idea is something like a rook to b8, exchanging the rooks with a check. And here black set up a very grief tactic. If queen takes queen, rook takes queen, then surprisingly it's a draw, because these two pawns are very strong. Moving ahead, the rook behind them, there is a no checkmating idea in the back rank, and that is miraculously a draw. White will have to stop these pawns with the bishop, and the bishop will be of no use, or just sacrifice the bishop for the pawn and it will be 3 pawn versus 3 pawn. And hence the correct move here was just simply to take the pawn, and Divya played that. Queen takes c5, rook e8, and now rook to d5. Because now if after exchanging, let's say queen takes, that happened in the game, bishop takes and pawn push, now the bishop is coming here, and it's not only saving this check, but it's also saving the pawn from queening. So if this bishop weren't there, then black's idea was check, and then queen, or just take this rook for free. But this bishop coming to f3 checks all the squares here, the important squares, and forces black to resign here. And Divya has won another game with a score of 9.5 and 11 out of 11. And this was the first game that ended in the women's section, which gave a lot of confidence to the other boards. And moving on, we also see women winning the game and the Olympiad of 2024. Congratulations once again to the players and giving us such beautiful games to see. I hope you liked this video. If you did, click on the like button, hit the subscribe button, and meet you in the next video. Till then, stay safe, play chess, and keep learning. Bye.